back to WagerTalk.com. I'm Marco D'Angelo, joined in studio, Bryan Leonard and Ralph Michaels of Cal Sports. And guys, we're going to kick it right off. College football Saturday. We got a big one in the Big Ten. We've got Wisconsin at Michigan State. Do we have a little bit of a overreaction this week with last week's results? Michigan State beats Notre Dame, and Wisconsin was life and death last week. What do you guys think about this one, Bryan?
It's interesting to me because Wisconsin had so much in that first game when they're playing at Green Bay Packers Stadium, Lambeau Field. I really thought that next week, and we discussed, I used Akron in that game. I really thought they're going to have a letdown. And they looked so good in that time. And then last week, they play a team that can't stop the run. They're a team that runs the football, and they really struggled.
I agree with you. Do you think, though, because the MAC schedules a lot of, teams in the Big Ten, and the MAC has given some teams some scares? We've already seen Western Michigan beat Northwestern. Do you think, maybe they had that delayed letdown because they didn't take the MAC team for granted, and last week they did, and looking ahead to this one is what I'm looking at.
Well, you had a 2-week look ahead, and, I went back and forth on this game, and I thought the same thing, that the scheduling spot favors Wisconsin because they had a nobody, while Michigan State had a play for a big game. So I went back and I did some work looking at how Michigan State does often upset. I was planning to fade Michigan State in this spot. They hadn't played Notre Dame in a couple games, a big national TV game, but the last 3 years, under D'Antonio, when Michigan State has pulled the upset, they pulled 4 upsets the last 2 years. They've come out the week after beating number 12 Michigan, they beat Indiana by 26, only laying 16. The week after beating Ohio State, they beat Penn State by 39. After upsetting Iowa, they beat Indiana by 14. And in the Big Ten Championship, after upsetting Ohio State, they beat Stanford in the bowl. So Michigan State, a very strong 4-0, often upset win in a spot I was looking to fade them. It was interesting to me that D'Antonio was that good of a coach to get his team prepped for that situation.
And I can't argue with that, but what I'm looking at in this one, what do we really know about Michigan State, though, so far? Because the schedule, they played that first game of the season, then they had a week off. Taking a bye week early in the season really, to me, doesn't serve any purpose. You need that bye later in the season when you're banged up a little bit. And then they come back and they beat a Notre Dame team. I'm not impressed with this Notre Dame team at all. Their defense, let's be honest about it, it sucks. Texas went up and down the field on them. And Michigan State, who hadn't shown any offense yet, but I think that first game they kept it vanilla just for this reason, they couldn't stop Michigan State. Wisconsin's going to pound it down their throat. We know the game plan of Wisconsin. It's always the same. We're going to try to beat you at the line of scrimmage, and we're going to stay in the game with the defense. Defensively, Wisconsin's held 3 teams. They held LSU to 126 yards rushing. We know how good LSU is supposed to be running the football. Then Akron to 88, and then last week Georgia State only 33 yards rushing. Will Michigan State be able to move the football in this game?
I think they will, and we talked before the season started on surprise teams. I thought Michigan State, based on the coaching, was going to be right back in there, and nobody was giving them any credit because of all the people they lost. But you've got one of the best coaching staffs in college football. You had a quarterback who beat Ohio State last year. His one start is Ohio State, and he beats them. How do you discount something like that? This is a team that plays very good football, but as we've talked so far, this is the 3rd week, you don't want to overreact. And as you pointed out, Notre Dame just has not been as good as what we thought they were going to be. I would expect Wisconsin to be able to bounce back this week. I don't want to lay them. I think these two teams are within 3 points of each other, and I think the line's probably about right, so I'm probably going to pass on this one.
Ralph, with a low total like this, I always want, I have to have a really good reason to look at the favorite when the total's this low, because Vegas is telling us that this is going to be a game where points are going to be at a premium. And for me, I got to look at the dog or I pass the game. What are you looking at?
You know what? I'm looking at the dog as well. Wisconsin 7-2-1 as a Big Ten dog, so they're a great dog. Why? Because they run the ball to slow the game down. Number 2, because of their defense. you know, we talk about how I'll be posting my offense and defensive ratings next week at WagerTalk with the adjusted offenses and defenses. Wisconsin comes in as my number 10 defense. That's based on opponents. Michigan State's taken on Furman and Notre Dame, who I've ranked number 70. Now, Brian, granted, the quarterback did make his start at Ohio State. It's a little different, though, this time when Wisconsin has game film on him, prepping for him, and planning when they had 2 weeks to plan, while Michigan State had to put all their eggs in the basket against Notre Dame. It's a low total. With these two defenses and these two rush attacks, I still like the under despite that low number.
All right.
A quick counter. They've had all preseason with this guy as a quarterback, so it's a little bit different situation.
It is.
He was number 2 guy last year.
All right. You want anybody in this one?
It's going to be a low-scoring game. Anytime you get a low-scoring total, you want to look at the dog, but
All right, I'm with you. I see it as a 3-point game either way. I lean to Wisconsin plus the points in this one. And guys, weekend all access at WagerTalk. Pick your favorite capper. Get all of his plays Thursday through Monday, just $69. That would include any big plays, those 5% plays that they would have. Check it out at WagerTalk.com. We'll be back with more.